It's a brand new edition of NFL Power Rankings. It is presented by Energizer. It was a long week. In fact, so long that when you get a doubleheader, back-to-back games on a Monday Night Football, when your inbox blows up in the middle of the night and it's Eric's Power Rankings, you know that he's going to be caffeinated for this show. I feel like you were working to the wee hours of the morning trying to fine-tune this thing, Eric.
Well, not only doing this week's rankings, Mike, but also cleaning up last week's mess. I admit I had the Bills too high, I had a few other teams in the wrong spot. So this is like resetting the decks here a little bit this week. It was a lot of work. Stayed up late and hard working for you people out there.
You know, I'm in bed. This is probably TMI, but I'm in bed and I'm on my phone and I'm reading through your article, which is on NFL.com right now, and I'm doing a double take, and I'm like, he didn't really mean to put that team there. Oh, but he did. Yeah, let's get to the rankings and some of the overcorrection maybe that we have witnessed. All right, back to normal. The Detroit Lions sitting number one. They move up a spot, dethroning the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who we'll get to in just a minute. Don't look now. Moving up 6 spots. The Indianapolis Colts, a 6-1 football team, sitting at number 2. The Chiefs at 3. The Seahawks, with that defense that we saw on Monday Night Football, are 4th. They actually drop 1 spot. The Green Bay Packers at 5, the Eagles staying even at 6, as do the Rams at 7, and a significant drop for that Bucs team, now sitting at 8. All right, let's focus in on this number 1 team. We did this on the postgame show on NFL Network. Are they the best team in the NFC? You think they're the best team right now in the NFL. Is that solely just based off of the performance that they're getting from a defense that's banged up right now? And Jahmyr Gibbs sort of flexing that he is one of the top 2 or 3 backs in the league.
Yeah, there's a lot that went into it. Obviously, there was a lot that went into putting the Bucs first last week that didn't sort of pan out for me, but I felt okay with it because I know they have a dominant offense that was frankly at a B- C+ level against the Bucs. Too many turnovers, too many missed points. But when you have a home run hitter like Jahmyr Gibbs, you can kind of get away with that. And he was obviously special. But look at this defense. Guys like Rock Yassin, he obviously missed some snaps during the game, had to step up. No Kirby Joseph, no Terry Arnold, no Brian Branch, no Avonte Maddox. They had all backups pretty much in that secondary, and they did a fantastic job. Evans didn't finish the game, but still, to be able to control a Tampa Bay offense that was at least among the best half dozen or 10 offenses in the league, you can have somewhat of an off night on offense. And Goff made some big throws, no question about it. This one to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Look, we know they're capable of these big explosive moments. They don't have to be perfect every drive. And I just think their overall resume speaks a little louder to me than some other teams, although Colts fans may want to have a word with me.
I still think about this team, that Sunday Night Football, the loss against Kansas City is, I don't want to say a scheme thing, but like Kansas City just did a masterful job just making sure that Detroit didn't have the football. In some ways it was a little bit of a disappointment in terms of the not the result, but just the game. I expected more fireworks, but maybe it was just a learning about the parity that we're getting in the NFL. All right, time for Power Moves. It is presented by Energizer. Moving up 6 spots, the Colts. All right, when I think about this number 2 team, I'm flashing back to last season on this show. We ran a graphic. It was the Commanders and where they started, which was like 26-28, something along those lines. Yep. And then just the rise that they continue to have. That's the Colts this year. Like, this is legit. I'm tired of this conversation that I'm hearing in the national media, which is, hey, are they for real? Eric, this is a real football team that really could make a push and a claim that they are the best in the league.
Yeah, I'm here to confirm what you just said. They are for real. And of course, I'm a little late on it. I've been holding back a little bit. They had a blowout over the Raiders. How much stock do you put on that? They lose to the Rams, made some self-inflicted errors. They had moments along the way where you thought, okay, are they really that good? But look at what the offense has done every single game this season. Really, outside of the Rams game, they've scored 28 or more every single game. And Jonathan Taylor and Daniel Jones, I believe if you're making a serious MVP list right now, you got to have both guys on it. Taylor is spectacular, kind of reimagining his 2021 season, that level of production. I think we could end up seeing him with career numbers in some regards. Jones has obviously changed the arc of his career too, and it all works off of the run game. You see this play action pass, throw it back to Taylor, and they just have so many different weapons. And Tyler Warren has stepped in and looked like a Pro Bowl tight end right away from Jump Street. So I've just been really impressed. The defense set the tone in the first half against the Chargers and held on late. And they're a complete football team. And no more talk about Shane Steichen on the hot seat. No more talk about Chris Ballard's draft picks. They're all hitting right now.
Evan Washburn from CBS, I saw this on social media somewhere. He's interviewing Daniel Jones, and I'm paraphrasing, saying, hey, a little bit of a surprise, where you guys are at right now. And DJ's response was something to the effect of like, hey, y'all just didn't know what you were talking about at the start of the season. Maybe he's right. The Kansas City Chiefs are a team that also was one of these significant risers in the rankings, moving up 6 spots. They sit number 3 in your power rankings. They do have a win against the Lions. I'm just curious because it has looked better over these last 2 weeks, and maybe you can make a claim that, hey, Raiders aren't necessarily juggernauts. Did you at all consider them at number 1?
I did, yeah. I thought about it. Look, and I would have thought about the Seahawks had they had a great performance on Monday night. I'm always trying to be flexible on these things, and I asked myself, who is the most dangerous team right now? And if you don't come up with the Chiefs in your first 3 or 4 answers, I think you're missing the picture here. Yes, it was the Raiders, and yes, they were shorthanded, no doubt about it. But first time we saw Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice, and Xavier Worthy on the field together, it looked pretty darn good. I don't even think 31-0 showed the level of dominance, the one-sidedness of this game. The Raiders could do absolutely nothing on offense. Probably not a huge shock with who they were missing, but the Chiefs look really good. How about the no-look pass returning, too? A little bit of that swagger is back. Rashee Rice sort of brings that. We saw another start to the season where Mahomes was kind of sluggish at times and all that. I think that's gone. He's not having to carry the load with all his scrambling and crazy plays. He could just sit back and throw to his playmakers. It's just been so much different the last couple of weeks, and I think they're on a roll. And even if their resume comes up a little short from some of the top teams.
I think there's some other guys, at least at this point of the season, that I would point to in front of Mahomes as MVP. A lot of football to be played, and not for nothing, the way that he has played so far, I think by the end of the season, he's absolutely going to be in that conversation. All right, at number 5, it is the Green Bay Packers. I was ready to crown them after week 2. I'm like, this team's going to the Super Bowl. And obviously that was a dumb comment, which is one of many that I typically make in my life. Generally speaking, though, this team to me is an enigma. I'm actually surprised that you had them 5th. Like, I think there was a case to drop them further down.
Yeah, I thought about it. I did. And look, it has been a little bit disappointing, some of these games where they match up against a seemingly lesser team or one that's at least a notch below them and play them in a one-possession game or play them in a tight game or have to have the fourth quarter to put them away. So still some questions about the offense, another kind of sluggish start. Josh Jacobs limited. You got to factor that in as well. But when the offense really came alive was when Matt LaFleur trusted Jordan Love. And, that big 4th and 2, they brought the field goal team out. They called timeout and said, no, we want the offense out there. And Love delivers a teardrop to Tucker Kraft. And he just hit him on a big 3rd down right before that. So you're seeing these little kind of kernels of growth in the offense. It's not to the levels we expect. They still have to get better on that side. And defensively, they can't wait for Micah Parsons to just rescue them in the fourth quarter like he did Sunday. A little bit more consistent throughout. So, yeah, there was a case to drop them, but they ended up winning, played very well in the fourth quarter. I thought, we're going to hold them steady for this week, but they're on watch. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and to be clear, by the end of the season, if they are playing in the Super Bowl, we will replay the clip of me in week 2 coming off of that win. It was Lions, then Commanders saying that they were going to be in the Super Bowl. So I'll sound like I was right, and all is right in the world. At number 6 is an Eagles team. Speaking, if things are okay in Philadelphia. I mean, we saw some explosive plays. People talking about, hey, this best performance we've seen from Jalen Hurts, which I guess numerically, based on the passer rating and stuff, you can kind of point to it, considering who they were playing in this defense. I don't know if I'd go that far, but boy, oh boy, signs of life, Eric, in a meaningful way for this Philly team.
Yeah, and it was, deeper shots. Obviously, we've been kind of waiting for that A.J. Brown connection to happen. A little bit more Devontae Smith. Those two guys were outstanding, and Hurts made it happen. And I think Hurts working outside of structure, too, and not just pulling up to run or, taking the short gains, but taking some risks, knowing that the blitz was there, and he was fantastic against extra pressure. We know Brian Flores is going to bring it. The Eagles certainly knew that coming in. They had a plan for it, and it didn't just involve, screens and dump-offs and things like that. They were wanting to work outside of the pocket and make plays downfield. So, look, he was averaging 16.6 yards per attempt on blitzes alone. So Hurts was fantastic. The defense got Jalen Carter stepped up. Jalix Hunt had the pick 6. This was kind of a get-right game against the team that I think is still moderately competitive in the Vikings.
Yeah, and speaking of another get-right game, an opportunity to avenge a loss from a couple weeks ago, it will be the Eagles matching up against the New York Giants. All right, time for Future Champions. It is presented by FanDuel. take a look at the odds to go and win the NFC West. The Rams right now are the favorite, plus 135. The Niners not too far behind at 170, and then plus 260 are the Seahawks, and the Arizona Cardinals, well, I guess technically still have a chance. According to FanDuel, though, at plus 10,000, it's not a great one. This is a Rams team that sits number 7 right now in your power rankings. We didn't see Puka out there overseas for this game. Matthew Stafford, though, is continuing to sort of flex here. I don't know what to make of this team because of that loss a couple weeks ago against the Niners. Do we just say blip on the radar and Kyle Shanahan just has success against this team?
Yeah, right. In this case, when it's a divisional opponent and you look at those kind of results, you can say, all right, there's familiarity there, right? These guys go back a long way. When you're talking about a game like Rams-Jaguars on a neutral field, and it's pretty one-sided, even if the yards suggested it was a little closer than it was, you tip your hat to the Rams and say they played a great game. You know, they had 5 touchdowns on offense and 7 sacks on defense. That's the kind of formula you're looking for. You know, the Jaguars threw the ball, 50 times almost, and really didn't have a whole lot of success doing it until very late in the game. So, you know, I just thought this was a really good offensive plan. No Puka Nacua, you put up 35 points. Get the tight ends involved, you know, Ferguson, Parkinson, Higbee. It was really nice to see. It was just a good, even if it wasn't the most beautiful offensive execution, they were just a step or two ahead of the Jaguars all game. And yeah, it's another team that I thought, should I move them up? Are they worthy of being a top 5 team? They're really close. All these teams are within a hair of each other.
Yeah, you talk about this razor-thin margin. I started the show, I were talking about being in bed last night, coming home from the postgame show on Monday Night Football going, did he really do this with this team as I'm looking at your article on NFL.com? You did. The Tampa Bay Bucks went from 1, and I was like, you got it right. You slotted them there. They deserve to be there. And then they go and you drop them 7 spots. They're now sitting 8th in the power rankings. Like, dude, I get it. Like, there's injuries, but they've been navigating it better than any team in the NFL this season.
No mercy, Mike. You gotta be real. You gotta know when to cut bait, or at least for now. I said this one in my piece on NFL.com. I'm not giving up on the Bucks, but given the state of things right now, first of all, they've been outscored on the season. I don't know if a lot of people realize that, giving up more points than they've scored. You know, everything was a razor-thin margin with every single game, but a clear difference between the Lions and the Bucks on Monday night. Now, some of that obviously had to do with no Bucky Irving, no other pieces. Evans goes down with the broken collarbone. That's a huge blow, especially in his return to the field. And they didn't get anything going with him while he was out there. So, you know, is Ibuka healthy? You know, he seemed to be playing at maybe 60, 70, 80% Monday night as well. So, you know, it's just a lot of questions with this team right now. Can they make enough stops defensively? They did a lot of good things on D, but when Jahmyr Gibbs hits a couple bombs, they're going to be up against it. So it was the injury factor and the factor that I probably overrated them a little bit last week, and they didn't necessarily deserve that promotion. So it kind of got them on both ends a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know if I actually think they did deserve it because of all the injuries that they have been able to navigate and figuring out ways to get wins. The one thing that I will say is, like, Detroit's defense last night was pretty terrific. And this is the first time I saw Baker just not look totally comfortable in the pocket. He missed some throws, kind of sailed the ball over a couple different receivers' heads a couple times. So I don't know. It was just, maybe it's a blip on the radar for this team. I don't know, but it does concern me what we witnessed, and the fact that you're dropping them 7 spots. My God. You know, there's one team that I actually thought would be able to crack the top 8, and that is the San Francisco 49ers. But according to Eric, that is just not the case. We will dissect what Christian McCaffrey was able to do against the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday night, where they sit in the rankings. And I've been vetoing, and I keep losing. The Denver Broncos. Do we need to talk about how they handle business against my Giants? Apparently we do. That's still to come here on Power Rankings.
Power Rankings is brought to you by Energizer. Still going.
Back here on Power Rankings, Mike Am and Eric at home with you. We got teams 9 through 16. I don't think I've ever had to wait to the B block of the show to talk about the Buffalo Bills in the last 2 years that I've been doing this, but that's where they sit right now. The Denver Broncos we'll get to in just a moment at 10. The Patriots moving up 5 spots, sit at 11. We got the San Francisco 49ers just figuring out ways to win, even with the depleted roster at 12. The Steelers at 13. The Bears, don't look now, 4 consecutive wins for this team. The Jags dropped 2 spots, still trying to figure out what that team is. And then we got the Commanders at 16. Time for Team of the Week. It is presented by Truist. All right, at number 10, we got a Broncos squad. 19-point deficit in the fourth quarter. Figure out a way to get it done against my Giants. I was like, do we have to talk about this team? Everyone said yes. Not only do we do that, we're making them like our team of the week too, of course, right? So break this down for me. Just how impressive are some of these cardiac moments that we're seeing from Sean Payton's team where it doesn't seemingly matter where they sit. They just figure out ways to get it done, except for those two essentially walk-off losses that they had earlier this year.
Yeah, right. No, I mean, obviously some of those kind of battle harden you and some of them, kind of set you up. Lessons learned. This is what we're going to do next time, or this is how we're going to behave in these moments. And obviously the Broncos dug such a big hole for themselves. And, to be able to just pull it off is pretty remarkable. But the fact that they almost blew it a second time just kind of adds to the ridiculousness of it. Mike, I never know what to do with teams who do this sort of thing. Remember we had that crazy comeback against a bad Colts team. The Vikings scored all those points and everything. How do you rank a team that plays terribly for 3 quarters and then brilliantly for 1 quarter for the most part, and then sort of just average it all out? Are they 2/3 good to 1/3 bad? It's really difficult, but the biggest thing I came away from this game was, boy, Bo Nix had an amazing fourth quarter, and that Denver defense really let me down anyway, and just expecting a lot more coming off that dominance against the Jets. And yeah, it's a better team and an exciting quarterback, but the fact that they got so few stops until the gift interception late really has me concerned. Are they a top 5 defense anymore? I don't know the answer.
Yeah, I think generally speaking, I do still buy on this Denver team. I think they are a good defense. I think a lot of that has to do with the pressure that they get up front. Just for context here, last 3 wins for the Broncos, a total of 7 points. The 2 losses, if I could do the math real quick, a total of 4 points. And those were those walk-off sort of field goals that we saw in week 2 against the Colts and the Chargers, both of those games on the road. All right, let's focus in on the Niners. I think they're too low at 12. I think they should be closer into that top 10. Sell me on why a team that just is not healthy, that doesn't have a Fred Warner out there, that keeps the Atlanta Falcons, to 10 points or whatever, 10 points a season low for them. Why 12?
They've got 2 serious contenders in the NFC West. I think they're going to have to contend with and fight off to win the division. They're obviously a team that has shown incredible toughness, incredibly well coached too. They look the more prepared team between them and Atlanta during this game. And, Christian McCaffrey having his breakout game deserves a lot of credit, right? They hadn't had success running the football. They'd had to get him the ball through the air. Pretty much every way they got him the ball on Sunday night worked. And against the good Atlanta defense, too. I think that has to be said. Yeah, I've been kind of slow playing the Niners a little bit. And the injuries are part of it, too, because they're not getting Warner back. They're not getting Bosa back. A lot of these other teams that have had similar grades of injuries and similar swaths of players go down, a lot of them have chances to return later in the season. So I do kind of bake that in a little. But the fact that, they were able to pluck so many guys off the practice squad and off the second team and have them step up and play as well as they did against an explosive offense deserves the credit. I hear what you're saying. I just don't look at them and say, this is obviously a top 10 team. I think they're very close. And like I said, a lot of the margin for error between 5 and 15 is not that big right now, I think.
Yeah, they haven't even come close to hitting their ceiling, at least in my mind. So there's a buffer here, and we'll find out over the next couple of weeks where they end up slotting in by really the end of the season. Explain the Steelers at 13. I don't really know what to make of this team. I was starting to kind of get on that bandwagon, and then I see Joe Flacco and the Bengals roast this defense. That's not supposed to happen.
Yeah, sort of the same question we had with Denver a little bit. Now, I don't know if the Steelers have quite as good a defense, but to see them really struggle to generate any kind of pass rush has me worried. Now, Aaron Rodgers had some big moments in this game, not just the Hail Mary, which he threw almost 70 yards, according to Next Gen stats, but the fact that he extended a lot of plays, made some other big throws, used his legs more than we're used to seeing. So there were some good things from the Steelers offense, even with the 2 interceptions. But, it was the fact that they seemed incapable of slowing down Joe Flacco, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. Those are the only guys you had to really worry about. And on top of that, they woke up a dormant run game from the Bengals. Chase Brown had been locked up all season, and they went kind of wild against them. So, again, short week on the road, you factor that in too. But kind of like the Niners, there's just been this quality about them that's held me back from elevating them further on the list to this point.
There's two teams in the NFL, Eric, that I'm legitimately worried about. One of them is the Houston Texans. The other one is at 16, the Washington Commanders. I know that they're banged up with injuries. Jaden Daniels doesn't seem all that serious, according to Dan Quinn, with that hamstring injury. But check this out. They got the Chiefs, the Seahawks, and then the Lions over their next 3 games. Like this could really spiral out of control for a 3-4 football team.
Yeah, they're obviously, this is a crucial point, especially we don't know when Daniels is going to return to the field. It could be this week against Kansas City. It might be a week after that. If they don't have him, look, we've seen Marcus Mariota go to Atlanta and just come up a little short in a shootout. So who knows what could happen? But the way the Chiefs are playing right now, that concerns you. They do have the extra day, which helps. But yeah, I mean, obviously defensively, you have to ask yourself, is Marshawn Lattimore playable at this point? Is there another, can they clean up the missed tackling too and the bad angles to the ball that are giving teams extra yards, it feels like? And the receiver situation too with McLaurin hurt, Debo, Brown, etc. I mean, they're just really shorthanded in some key spots, defense, playmakers on offense. And that's taken last year's darlings and really kind of neutered them a little bit. So they've had their moments, but they just haven't been able to have a full healthy squad out there to show all their talents.
Yeah, you know who's getting a little bit more healthy right now? That's the Dallas Cowboys, who just beat them this past weekend. We're trying to figure out where Dak and the boys actually sit. They're clearly behind this Commanders team. We'll find out exactly where Eric wanted to slot them, and also check in on that Bengals squad. They're on the move as well, considering that win that we just talked about against the Steelers. Back here on Power Rankings, along with Eric Edholm, Mike Am with you, team 17 through 24. We got the Chargers at 17, dropping a spot, the Atlanta Falcons to 18. Carolina's figuring things out here. They're in the top 20, sitting at 19. The Cowboys move up 2 spots at 20. The Houston Texans, I said I was worried about them, and I am because of that team's offense. The Vikings at 22. The Ravens... Yeah, 23 at 1. I can't believe the Ravens are a 1-5 football team. And we got Cincinnati sitting at 24. They move up 3 spots, and there are some signs of life for that ball club. All right, at number 20, they move up 2 spots. It is the Dallas Cowboys. I think this offense, because Pickens has played as well as he has so far this season, CeeDee Lamb back in the fold, that side of the football alone makes this team dangerous. I don't think we're talking about them in the top 20 by season's end. I think it's closer to the top 15.
Oh, they're lurking. Absolutely. I mean, you still have to worry about that defense. When you have Dak Prescott playing at the level he is, and it's crazy to think that a Cowboys quarterback playing well is not being recognized enough by the national media. But, you saw the big play to CD here. You obviously mentioned Pickens too. They can get the ball to the tight end. And oh, by the way, Javonte Williams had a terrific season so far. We know Brian Schottenheimer loves to run the ball. So if they can just get marginally better on defense and be as good as they've always been on special teams the last few years, they're a scary team. Denver better watch out this weekend. That defense is going to be up against it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Are you buying Joe Flacco with the Bengals, like keeping them alive in that division?
Completely changed the arc of their season, in my opinion. There's no doubt. I mean, look, we were sort of deciding when is this, do we just sit Burrow for the rest of the year? But he's getting the ball to his playmakers. Obviously found Noah Fant too, and other big plays to Josephus, and they found a run game too with Joe under center. They didn't do that with his replacement, or the guy he replaced, I should say. There's still a lot to do, right? They're still swimming way upstream and a ton of work to do. There's maybe only 3 or 4 games that you say, yeah, that's probably a win left on their schedule. But with Joe, the dude's just a contract killer, man. He's ready to go to work.
Hearing Mike Tomlin talk about, the fact that the Browns in the division would trade him and the disappointment, and then to see it unfold the way that it did, you almost feel bad for the Steelers fans, and I know Mike Tomlin's certainly thinking about that. Meanwhile, let's get to teams 25 through 32 here, and a closer look at some of these rankings. We got the Cardinals sitting at 25, the Giants somehow at 26. I still don't necessarily know what to make of what we witnessed on Sunday against the Denver Broncos. At 27, it's the Browns. At 28, it is the Saints. The Raiders check in at 29. They got the Dolphins at 30, 31 the Titans, and the Jets still looking for win number 1 on the season. Eric, if I'm being honest with you, I misspoke earlier in the show. I said I was worried about 2 teams in the NFL, the Texans and the Commanders, and I still am worried about those teams. I forgot to mention the Raiders, the Dolphins, and the Jets. I'm worried about all of those teams because it hadn't looked pretty for them.
I think we've already said that we're worried about them. They're past worry at this point. It is a freak out stage, I think.
Yeah. Eric, you're the best man. I cannot wait to do this again with you next week. And of course, I always appreciate everyone watching and listening to Power Rankings.